I'm here with a new friend of mine, Lex Rennick. She is an incredible person with a powerful story of. There's a whole lot. Okay, so we're gonna jump in. Lex, thank you so much for being here.
Yeah.
You grew up partly in Big Bear, California,
Yes.
right? And we go to Big Bear for the snow because most people don't know Southern California doesn't have seasons.
Yeah.
So we got to drive 3 hours to get any sort of season. And I love Big Bear. You just drove down from Big Bear with your husband and your baby that I got to meet. Tell me, let's start at the beginning. Like, what was it growing up in Big Bear? Like, cause when you go travel someplace and you always you're like,
Yeah.
what would it be like to live here? Right? Me and my
Yeah.
wife always play that game. What would it be like to live in Big Bear? Right? What was it like to live in Big Bear and grow up in Big Bear?
I think so. I grew up there when I was a junior in high school.
Okay.
I think when you're there as a teenager, you kind of take things for granted because now that we've left and we've been able to come back, we've realized how special and how lucky we were to grow up there and go snowboarding and have snow days, and it was really cool to do that, and we have a lot of family up there too. But I just feel like maybe we might have taken it a little for granted. Before.
What was it like, a small town feel?
Definitely.
Everyone knows everyone knows your business vibes?
Definitely. Everyone's dating everyone. It was like they were still playing hacky sack. No one was really on their phones yet. It takes an extra 3 to 5 years for trends to hit Big Bear, like when you're in high school. So, yeah.
I definitely
different
got
way of life.
that vibe in
Yeah.
terms of just being in the city. So, did you graduate from high school there?
I did.
Okay,
yeah.
what year did you graduate?
2015.
2015. Okay. So, you graduate high school, and then do you stick around Big Bear and kind of like immerse yourself in that community, or do you graduate and
No.
bounce?
I graduated, and my dad's like, okay, you have one or two options: go to college or join the military.
Really?
And and I grew up in like a law enforcement military background with my family.
Okay.
And my family's always been like, if you want to follow your dream, why not serve your country? Because there's people that have died for you to have, the ability to go and live out your dream. And so I'm like, okay, I'll do that. So I went to the recruiter office, and he's like, well, what do you like to do? And I'm like, I'm at church like 5 days a week. I don't really think you have anything for that. He's like, actually, we have a chaplain's assistant position.
Okay.
And so I signed a contract with the U.S. Army to do that. And so basically, the Army, all the branches of the military have a chaplain corps. So you can be Protestant, Buddhist. You're basically providing religious support for the soldiers or for military personnel. But if you're a chaplain, which is an officer, they take a vow that thou shalt not kill. So they've created my MOS to bear arms to protect them while they provide religious support. So kind of a little bit of a bad ASS job, So,
Wow.
Yeah.
So how many years did you spend in
3
the Army?
years.
3 years in the Army?
3 years, yeah.
Wow.
And it really got my foot in the door of like loving the lost and really desiring to be in ministry. And at the time, since I was identifying as Austin, I was the first ever openly serving transgender religious affairs specialist in the entire United States Army.
Whoa.
The first recognized.
Whoa.
Yeah, so it was a big deal. My Baptist chaplain wasn't expecting to have a transgender protect him while he provided religious support, but we're still great friends and had a lot of good conversation on the journey.
Wow. Okay. So, well, first of all, thank you for serving our country in that way and protecting the chaplain. Did you deploy and do anything overseas, just local stuff?
No, we were supposed to deploy, and then, of course, our orders got pulled.
Yep.
And I was really bummed about that because right when I got out, our unit left. Like, they left with a new chaplain assistant. I'm like, dang, I've known these guys for 3 years. But, God had other plans. So
And where were you stationed during all that?
I was actually here in Riverside.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
so at March Air Force Base.
Way cool.
Yeah,
Okay.
so I don't have to go that far.
So you mentioned while you were in the military, you were identifying as Austin.
Yes.
Austin was who you went by when you were identifying as a male or man. When did the I guess feelings of gender dysphoria start for you? Is when you were a kid?
Yeah.
Was it when you were an adult? And how'd that go?
Yeah, this is before it was really like indoctrinated or in schools and stuff, or all over the media. This is when I was 5 or 6 years old, dealing with this. And I'm 27 now. And so, long story short, the first thoughts came in after there was divorce within my family. So I actually grew up in a Christian family. My parents were in ministry. So we were at church 3 to 5 days a week, but little did people know that behind closed doors, there's a lot of hidden trauma. There's a lot of secret sin. There's an alcohol addiction mixed with pills with my family. And so, unfortunately, there was adultery that happened. And my father, being my spiritual protector, was removed from the home. And it's like the enemy knew this is the perfect time to open Pandora's box and have all this confusion come in. So my innocence was ripped away at that very young age of 6 years old. And once that happened, it's like abusers know when kids are being abused. So that was just once of the many, unfortunately. And just from there, like as a kid, we had a pool. I'd take off my shirt just with the other guys and jump in. And my mom would be like, "What are you doing, hon? Like, you're a girl, you can't do that." And I would be so confused. I'm like, "What do you mean I'm a boy?" So it was always this confusion that I had from a very young age of understanding gender.
Jeez. Your mom then moved to Marietta. Am I
Yes.
tracking correctly?
Yes.
So she's in Marietta, which is, I mean, that's right up the street from us. It's about 45 minutes away. Actually, probably about 30 minutes away from where we're at. And so you're growing up, you're just doing normal stuff. At what point does that moment happen at the pool? Do you remember how old you were when that happened?
Probably around the same age, 6, 7 years
Okay.
old. So very, very young.
Okay.
And like my parents both really want me to like emphasize that this wasn't just some fad. Like I wasn't like a trans trender. Like it was something that they struggled with, watching me struggle with it. So yeah.
Wow. So the feeling comes before the essay that you experienced or after the essay? After. Okay, so there's some essay that happens, which is code for those of you guys that you're smart enough. Essay that happens, and then the feelings of I don't feel. Was it like that logical? Like I don't feel comfortable in my own body. I don't feel like I'm in the right body. It was literally that thought.
It literally was like, why do I have female parts when I'm a boy? It wasn't a question of like, oh, maybe this. No, it was just like, I remember when Google came out and I had the first iPod Touch, I Googled like, I'm a born female, but I feel like I'm a boy trapped in a woman's body. And when I typed that, the word transgender came up. And it was like this big moment of relief for me because when you're a kid and you have some weird things going on, you think you're the only one. And so for me, there was this bit of relief of like, okay, this word transgender, like I'm not the only person going through this. And it was a big relief for me at the time.
And what year was this?
I'm not sure the year, but I'm going to guess around 11 or 12 years old.
Okay.
Yeah, so right before puberty hit, because once puberty hit, that's when like the dysphoria came on, and like dysphoria is basically, so there's a difference between body dysmorphia and dysphoria.
Okay, what's the difference?
So with trans people, they identify dysphoria almost being like you want to unzip yourself. It's almost like you literally want to unzip yourself, open your skin up and walk out because you're so uncomfortable. Like I couldn't focus on my dreams, my desires for the future, relationships. I couldn't focus on anything because I was so focused on my identity and like being uncomfortable. Every day it was a struggle. And when I was 13 years old going through puberty and, you know, my breasts started to form and I started having a period, it became so depressing to the point where I would duct tape my chest for 10 hours a day because I was so uncomfortable with my breast growing. And no one just does that for fun. You know, no one knew that I was doing that. My stepdad would be like, where did all my duct tape go in the garage? And meanwhile, I'd be in the bathroom at the end of the day peeling it off. And as I'd peel it off, my skin would come off with it. So I was never able to wear white t-shirts because I would bleed through my shirts.
Oh, gosh.
And this was before like binders came out, you know, that people would wear to flatten their chest. And there's just this heavy uncomfortability. It's such a lie from the enemy that like I needed to do all these things to finally be free. And so that's when I learned about like the hormones and the surgeries and all the things that tell you if you do these things, you'll finally feel free.
Now, you ended up having a surgery at one point.
I did.
But before we get into that, I'm assuming you did some hormones initially.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And how old were you when you started hormones?
18. So I was on hormones for 7 years. 14 years I identified as a man. 14 years of identifying. I mean, as soon as middle school, high school age, I was using the boys' restroom, all of that, and none of this was notified to my parents.
Whoa.
No one knew any of this.
And this is
before it's like even in schools.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So are you telling a different name? Are you telling your teachers to call you a different name?
The crazy thing about my testimony too is when I was in my mom's belly when she was pregnant with me, they told my parents that I was supposed to be born a boy. And so when I had this confusion as a very young kid, my mom would always say like, did you tell her? Did you tell her that she was actually supposed to be born a boy? Because that's what they told my family every ultrasound. To the point where I had blue Nikes in a blue room, like my aunt had to go and figure out, you know, how to change the paint in the room and stuff once I was born. So that's how I chose the name Austin, because I was originally supposed to be named Austin Mira.
Whoa.
And then I was a no name for about 48 hours, and they changed Austin to Alexis. So
Wow.
pretty wild.
So 14 years, you identify as a man. Half of those years from the age of 18 onward, you took
Testosterone.
testosterone. What was that like, the moment? Because at 18, you start taking testosterone. And so if I'm doing the math correctly, it's 2018-ish, right?
Yes.
So what was that like when you start actually getting hormone therapy?
Yeah, I wanted to start earlier. Like, I wanted to start when I was 15, 16 years old, but my parents are like, no, this is a decision that, like, we don't necessarily agree with, and we just believe that this is a decision an adult should make. So at 18, you can make that decision. Very grateful. I'm so grateful, because what if I wouldn't ever be able to have a child, you know, starting at a younger age. So at 18, when I started, I went to Planned Parenthood, and they willy-nilly nowadays just write you a prescription. You can walk out with the testosterone, with the needles that day. Well, at my time frame, it was just when everything came out. So you had to be in gender therapy with a therapist for a certain amount of time before they could approve you to do this. Because this is life-altering things, you know. Once you start taking testosterone, they really say you most of the time cannot go back. These are long-term decisions that you're making. So I started going to gender therapy, got the letter from my gender therapist saying, like, okay, like, you're mentally stable enough to take testosterone. And once I started testosterone, it was this bit of relief, because I felt like finally my body was going to match my mind. And it's the narrative that the world sells, you know, you do these things and you'll finally be free. And so I started injecting myself every Wednesday with a needle about this big, taking testosterone, and immediately I grew my Adam's apple within 3 months. So, and that was probably one of the most painful things that happened during that time.
Like physically painful?
Yeah, physically painful when I grew it. Yeah.
Really?
And I was on a very high dose of testosterone as well. I started at 0.5 milligrams a week. So
And
it was a very
that's a
high
lot.
dosage. Yeah, most people start at 0.1
Why did they give you so much?
or point. I have no idea. My endocrinologist had no idea what she was doing. So
And so all things considering, this is still relatively early around this
Yes.
conversation, because this stuff's kind of,
Yes.
I feel like, has gone more and more mainstream in the last, like, pandemic, post-pandemic vibes. And you're going through this. You said you graduated high school in 2015.
Yes.
So this is like 2015, 2018. You're experiencing all this.
yes.
Okay, I'm gonna ask you a question, and I'm not trying to make light of any of this. Okay, but considering you're on testosterone and you were in the military, did you just like get super jacked?
I was top 3 in my class for physical fitness.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was top 3 in my class
Amongst everyone or amongst the women?
amongst everyone.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you were jacked.
Yeah, and that's the thing too. Like, if you're taking testosterone,
Yeah.
like here's the thing with the military. They're like, okay, even if we don't agree, if you're gonna identify as a male, we want you to hit male standard. We want to know that you can actually take care of us.
Okay.
Especially with my MOS,
Yeah.
like, you want to make sure that they're taken care of.
Huh.
And so that's how I gained respect. I was working out like crazy, going to the gym, just making sure that I could handle my part of the job. And there was this obviously like this cocky confidence that you get when you're a soldier. And I was the smallest one, so they'd be like, go get Mira. We're gonna have him shoot the 50 cal, you know, at the time, because
Yeah.
I'm the smallest one in the unit. So
Would you remember like the physical requirements? Because to be in the military, you have to do like a certain number of pull-ups and a certain number of
Pull-ups.
push-ups. Do you remember what those were?
I can't remember, but I'm sure you can look it up now.
Yeah.
Like, I know it's different now,
Yeah.
but yeah.
So you were crushing it.
Yeah, I was doing really good.
Outside of the Adam's apple and outside of just clearly like you're more physically capable
Yeah.
of, I mean, you're top 3. That's a big deal. What were there changes to mood? Were there changes to other
Absolutely.
things? What was that like?
I would say that would be the first thing that happens with hormones, because hormones have a lot to do with your mental health. I felt like a lot of my dysphoria went away because I became more masculine. Women are naturally crazy. I could say that now, you know, because I would take these testosterone injections and literally be so chill. Like, the world could be falling apart, and I'm like, it'd be all right. Like, no worries.
Interesting.
Wasn't stressed out. Wasn't worried. I had a lot more energy, but it was also like going through puberty all over again. Like, high sex drive, eating a lot. All of that really changed. My whole body structure changed. It went from, you know, more of a feminine physique to very straight, you know, up and down. My shoulders got broader. I mean, I just recently saw a friend yesterday, and she's like, "It's crazy. Like your body just a few years ago on testosterone to now, it doesn't even look like the same because I thankfully have gone back to my feminine traits, but everything changed. My facial structure changed." Even my forehead, I began to get a widow's peak like my dad. So a lot of things
Interesting.
changed.
Wow. And is it likely that had you started sooner, it would have been more irreversible?
Absolutely. Yeah, I think if I would have started maybe even at puberty, which nowadays that's what's happening. They're putting kids on puberty blockers, etc. I think the damage could have and would have been worse. So I'm glad that I started at 18, but I think a lot of the reverse that's happening with the detransition has been the blessing of bearing children and having children, because now I'm getting an overload of estrogen. So I often get asked the question, like, do you have to take estrogen now to make up for the years of taking testosterone? And I'm like, no, like God's just kind of leveled it all out, and the pregnancies have actually helped all my feminine qualities come back, including my voice.
Yeah.
My voice was way deeper than it was now. It's probably never going to go back to what I naturally, spoke.
Yeah.
But I just believe, God has the power to do anything. If he wants to remove my Adam's apple, wants to remove my scars and make my breasts grow back, there's nothing too far that like God can't do.
Yeah.
But he can also say no and use these things for his glory.
Amen.
So.
Amen. Before we get into the full restoration that's been happening in your life, which is incredible. You talk about when you went in to do the surgery and what led up to that, and what happened in that.
Yeah, that's a great question. I struggled so much with my body, dysphoria. It sucked. I felt like I could never go swimming, or I could never go to like the beach or do anything.
Even
fun.
though you're on testosterone,
even though I was on testosterone,
you're jacked at this point,
yeah,
and you're super fit.
Yeah, because I still had breasts. I mean, could I maybe pass if I took my shirt off? Yeah, but there's still this personal uncomfortability that I had, and my family was like, again, we don't agree, but if you're gonna do this, go to the best of the best. Don't get a botched surgery. So I went to the guy that invented top surgery in Florida. And they don't take insurance, like you have to pay cash. And so I paid $10,000 cash for my surgery. And it wasn't like I put it on a credit card, like I paid cash for this.
Yeah.
And as I went in, the average amount of like length of the surgery is anywhere from like 4 to 8 hours. But because this guy invented the surgery, he literally does 3 to 5 a day. So he can get this done within 2 hours a person. I was in there for the length of almost 10 hours in this surgery. It was during COVID, and so my husband had COVID. He couldn't fly out with me, so I had my stepmom there. Now everyone's kind of freaking out, like, what's going on? So the hospital told the surgeon to leave the building because he's done so many surgeries, never had a death on his record, and they thought that I would be the first. So they said that the surgery went great, it went well, but the minute that they extubated me, I no longer wanted to breathe.
What is excavated?
So they intubate you when they put the tube down.
Okay, when they taking the tube out.
Yeah, so when they took the tube out, and the machine's not breathing for me, all of a sudden I'm not breathing anymore. And so I woke up coughing up blood. I was connected to all these machines. I'm all like doped up, on these pain meds. And it was scary. I had no idea it was happening. They told me, we don't think you're ever going to have the ability to fully breathe again. They're like, we had to tell the surgeon to leave because we were afraid that you were going to lose your life. And I'm like, first of all, that's a red flag. How many other people has this happened to, and they just told him to leave. But basically, they gave me this device where you, like, suck into it to see your lung capacity. It has, like, 3 balls in it that goes up and down. I thought they were joking with me because I was trying as hard as I could to, like, blow into this thing. Not one of them was moving. And that's when I'm like, oh, man, this is, like, actually serious. And so I was just praying and repenting, like, God, like, please let me have my full lung capacity back and everything. Thankfully, it did come back. But it was a surgery that I knew that I was going to threaten my life to finally feel comfortable. And I'm not going to lie, at the time, like once I healed up and I went to the beach and went on my honeymoon and all these things, yeah, I felt a lot more confident than I ever imagined. But never in my life did I ever imagine I can honestly say now that I absolutely regret getting top surgery.
Sounds like you almost died.
Yeah, I did.
Wow. And you said average surgery for this doctor is 2 hours.
Yes.
Yours went almost 10 hours. I mean, clearly there's sounds like there's something happening in the spiritual, because you've kind of always maintained a connection with the Lord
Yeah.
throughout this entire process. When you woke up, what did they explain went wrong? Like if he does 2 or 3 a day, and it's like, hey, get out of here because you might have a death on your record, and they're thinking you could die.
Yeah, they by the way, they still won't even give me my medical records, and that's my legal right to get them. So I'm gonna have to even reach out and get a lawyer to get my medical records.
Really?
Because I need to know what they gave me. If I get in a car accident, what if it was just a bad reaction to the anesthesia? Or, honestly, it could have been spiritual as well. I need to know what I was given. That way, if anything happens, my husband knows, like, hey, if there's a car accident, like, she can't have this, or don't give her that. So it's really scary. I've been trying for over 2 years now to get those medical records.
And what do they say when you ask?
They keep ignoring me. They'll hang up the phone on me. They'll say no one's in. I'm like, I've sent emails. I've texted. Like, I need this information. I've even called the actual surgeon himself. Nothing. So I don't know if it's because, my testimony's out there. I don't know if they think that I'm trying to sue. It's literally not that. I just want to know, what I was given, so I have that. Yeah, I have that information.
Wow, that's crazy. So the top surgery came after you were already married. Okay, so you got to tell me, how did that come about? Because I got to meet your husband
Yes.
and your baby, which amazing, beautiful
Thank
family.
you.
So walk me through that, because he shared some of his story on Michael Knowles' channel.
Yes.
And he thought he was dating a man, because he identified as gay at the time.
Yes.
And you're like, no, but I have woman parts.
Yeah.
So walk me through that.
Yes. So prior to me meeting my husband, that's why I was just telling you before we filmed, like, it was so special being in Big Bear, because I had so many falling on my face moments with the Lord. And I had this special doc that I would go to just cry out to God, pray, just laugh with God. And I went to this doc, and I would go there daily, like even during work or whatever. And I went to this doc this one time, maybe about a week before I met my husband, and it was different. Like, something about this moment was different. Like, I knew I was going to encounter God. I knew I was going to lay something at his feet. I walk to the end of this dock, and I fall on my knees, and I just say, Lord, I know you now. Because I was born again at 17. I rededicated my life at 17 after 3 suicide attempts, just super depressed. This girl from high school kept inviting me to a youth group, finally said yes. I went, and, like, they were taking off their shoes, and it wasn't even Pentecostal. I'm like, what's going on? And I'm like, why are they taking their shoes off? And she's like, well, what do you do when you get home? And I'm like, well, I take my shoes off. And she's like, well, welcome home. And it was so prophetic to me.
And this is in Big Bear?
This is actually Marietta, before I was a junior in high school.
Okay.
And so I see these kids just really going after the Lord. And I tried the New Age stuff. I tried the witchcraft, the tarot cards, all of that. Got nothing from it. Was really angry at God through everything that I went through. And I think I grew up knowing of Jesus, not having a true, authentic relationship with him. I just saw a lot of religion in my family. And so I saw these kids really going after the Lord, and I'm like, you know what? I don't know what they have, but I know that I want it. And so I rededicated my life at 17. So back to this doc moment, I'm like, God, I've been walking with you since I'm 17.
Despite the feelings of dysphoria.
Yes.
I'm saying the right word correctly.
Yeah.
Okay. Despite the feelings of dysphoria, despite struggling in multiple ways, attempting to take your own life.
Yeah.
You still have this encounter with Jesus.
Yes, absolutely.
And you're like, hey, like, I'm walking with you. And is it kind of like, from your standpoint, we'll sort this stuff out later in terms of gender identity, in terms of these things? Like,
I bought into the lie of like, God made me this way.
Okay, so you're like, I'm Team Jesus.
Yeah.
But Jesus made me this way.
Yeah, I was really bought into that deception and that lie. But on that journey of being 17, like, God was still removing things. God doesn't say, come into invite me in and then get it all cleaned up. He's like, no, come in now.
Yeah, that's good.
But God loves us enough to not let us stay as we are. He wants the best and the fullest for us. So God removed like years of a hidden porn addiction that no one knew about. I was like really drowning myself in alcohol and just smoking and different drugs to try and drown out the pain that I was looking to try and heal with the world's ways. And so it's not like God wasn't removing things. It's like, the Lord wants to bless us and heal us from things, but we have to let go. We have to be ready to release that to him. And so I walk to the end of this dock and I'm like, Lord, I know you now. I don't want to hear it from some guy holding up a sign saying I'm going to hell. I know you. So, God, if me identifying at the time I was only dating women. So I'm like, if me dating a woman, I wasn't ready to lay down my identity because again, I bought into the lie, but I kept having this conviction about my sexuality. I was only sleeping with women, only dating women. I'm like, God, you have the power to change me. I love the Gospel of John. I love seeing the miracles of Jesus. And I'm like, Lord, I know you have the power to change me. So if this life that I'm living is not glorifying unto you, it is not your will, then change me. Like, make me sexually attracted to a man, emotionally, physically, all the things. Like, you have the power to do that. Now, when I said this, knowing I went through a bunch of sexual trauma, this was hard. I can never imagine myself ever feeling like I could trust myself with a man. But I was just like, God, take away my desire for whatever you have, for your desires upon my life. And I remember crying and just laying on my face, just weeping. And I got up and I just pointed at the sky and I'm like, God, you promised to wow me. Because at one point when I was 17, the Lord said, one day I'm really going to wow you. I said, God, radically, like, where's my wow? Where's my wow? Radically change me. And then next thing you know, a week later, I walk into a coffee shop and the love of my life walks in, who happens to be a man. And we just, from there, crazy thing, he graduated high school, moved to Kauai, and was totally into the new age hippie thing. He grew up Lutheran, so he grew up with a lot of religion, not relationship. And he went and did his own thing, smoking weed on a weed farm in Hawaii, doing his own thing. And he just felt the Lord drawing him back home to Big Bear. And so he walks in and he's like, I don't know why I'm in here. I know the coffee shop's closing, but like the Spirit led me here to just play the piano. And I'm like, oh, the Spirit, why don't you sit down so we could talk about the Holy Spirit? And so our first time that we encountered each other, we were actually talking about like the gift of tongues and just like having our own private conversation with God. Like we just went deep, yeah.
I actually think I know the coffee shop. There's a coffee shop with a piano in it.
Yeah, Moonridge Coffee.
Yeah. What a trip. Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. So at this point, okay, so forgive me if I'm not.
No, you're good.
So at this point, are you identifying as a lesbian or are you identifying as a man, a heterosexual man?
I was identifying as that. Yeah,
heterosexual man.
Yeah.
You meet your husband, and then you go from heterosexual man to gay man.
Yeah.
From your paradigm.
In that.
And he
terms,
also
yeah.
was gay.
Yeah.
But you guys are both raised Christian. You guys both dabbled into the New Age and the witchcraft and all that sort of stuff. And then you meet each other, and you guys are a gay couple.
Yeah, there's just undeniable attraction, and from the outside, definitely.
That's how you guys are presenting yourselves to the world. Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. So then what was that relationship like, and how did the Lord? Because what I love about your story, Lex, is that despite all of this, despite the attempts at deletion, despite buying into some of the deception of the enemy, despite your struggles, despite the essay, there's still a centerness on the Lord.
Yes.
And it's not all done overnight. It's not like you get saved and everything happens. God's kind of working on you, revealing himself to you. You're wrestling.
Yeah.
And it seems like even your husband is like Lutheran background, kind of wild out with some of the weed farm stuff in Hawaii.
Yeah.
And here's the Lord seemingly bringing you guys together.
Yes.
Right? And now you have this beautiful family. I'm so intrigued by all of that because I think it's so interesting because again, from our paradigm as Christians, like my pastor said, we are a microwave people who serve a crockpot God. And we want these like instant, like, all right,
so true.
Boom, it's off, it's done, it's right. But that wasn't your guys' journey.
No.
It seemed like it was longer. So tell me that. So now you guys meet. So and what year is this approximately?
Oh gosh, I don't know the year.
Because you guys been married 4 years.
Yeah, I'm sorry, my husband's my brain.
Okay, it's all right. So
I'm gonna guess 2020 because we've been married for 4 years. We got married May 30th, so we were only together for 3 months. Got engaged. I proposed.
So like right around the
at that
pandemic
same
time.
dock. Yeah, I proposed the day of the lockdown. Yeah,
Get
I proposed
out.
the day of the lockdown.
Okay,
I remember
okay.
my barber was cutting my hair. I'm like, dude, I'm about to propose to my boyfriend. Like, do you think
Wow.
that this is like a bad idea? He's like, no, dude, like the world's ending. So this would be the perfect time to like confess your love.
Yeah. So
So.
around the pandemic, you guys meet. You propose.
Yes.
What was that like?
Well, I was more scared to talk to his parents and to talk to my dad.
And you go and ask
Yeah.
for his hand in marriage.
I do.
Oh yeah. Well, okay. You gotta tell me about that.